once again switching out our wine glass for a whiskey tumbler because Mike is here with the newest whiskey from our friends at Jameson. We're talking about the triple. So let's start with, does the name mean anything?
Oh, yeah. The name means a lot. Yeah.
Everything.
And it's hard to talk about this. We got St. Patrick's Day coming up, but I just couldn't wait. Like, we should wait until No, we got to talk about it.
You can have whiskey anytime, as far as I'm concerned.
There's plenty of other Irish whiskey we can talk about.
Yeah.
And it's close enough, right?
It is definitely close enough. So what does the triple mean?
Well, let's just briefly say, what is Irish whiskey? It has to come from Ireland, of course. It's typically triple distilled. So we'll start with that first triple. Doesn't have to be. It's not required to be triple distilled, but that's kind of what it's known for. Mm-hmm. Scotch is usually double distilled, and Irish whiskey is triple distilled. And that just means that it's going to,
all Irish whiskey.
Most Irish whiskey, can't say all because somebody had text in and say, here's one I found that good listeners that, but most is, and it's a tradition, but it's not required by law.
Oh, so for the uninitiated, meaning me, what does that mean? You distill it, you take it out, put it back in, take it out again, put it back. What does that mean?
You start with a combination of alcohol and water that you've made. And when you distill the first time, you're going to separate some of the alcohol from most of the water. And then you're going to do it again. It keeps concentrating the alcohol and raising the ABV or the proof. And every time I see you with a label. Yeah, right. Every time you do it.
Proof, does it change the flavor?
Well, it does. It removes impurities, they say. When I say impurities, really that's flavor components. But it removes some, but it also concentrates others.
Gotcha.
So when you distill it a third time, you make a cleaner, smoother whiskey.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of what Irish whiskey is known for.
Now, I was trying to do a little research on this. It is not a flavored whiskey.
It is not.
But it is like bourbon, sherry, chestnut cask.
Yeah.
So tell me more about that.
Well, Irish whiskey has to be aged in oak in Ireland. So that is a requirement. And typically they will use, not like we do with bourbon. We don't use new charred white oak barrels in Ireland like we do here for bourbon. So, it'll age for, say, 4 to 6 years in Ireland. There's a lot of whiskey at Jameson. They make a lot of whiskey for a lot of different distilleries. It's a huge, massive place. They got a lot of barrels that are available to them. So it starts out that way. Irish whiskey by law can't leave Ireland in an oak barrel. Otherwise, then it doesn't qualify to be an Irish whiskey.
Huh.
So once it qualifies to be an Irish whiskey, they can get a little creative with it. They can put some of that whiskey in used bourbon barrels, used sherry barrels, and chestnut barrels. And that's
I don't know that I've heard chestnut barrels used often.
Right.
Chestnut barrels is really unique, and it's used sometimes, but not always. They're a little bit bigger. They allow a little bit more air in. They leak a little bit more than oak does, but it allows for more color, oxidation. And rather than vanilla from oak, so that vanilla that you would taste comes from the oak, chestnut's going to give a little bit of cinnamon.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
So explain to me one more time, because I think maybe I missed something. Triple cask, bourbon, sherry, and chestnut casks.
Right.
Do they put it in the bourbon cask for a year and then move it to the sherry cask for a year and then pour it into the chestnut? How's this working?
What they would do is take the finished whiskey. They would put some whiskey in a bourbon cask, put some whiskey in a sherry cask, and then more whiskey in a chestnut cask. And then after about a year, they blend it all together.
They pour all into one.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's how you get the multiple flavors.
You could do that triple and have it all go, and you could do that. It's going to take a little bit longer, but I think it's better if they do it individually and then you put it together and you get, because you can taste all those different components.
Somebody on the text line, what is ABV?
So alcohol by volume. Proof is a different measurement from distillation. So if something is 100 proof, then it's going to be 50% alcohol by volume.
100 proof, 50%.
Right. So the proof is always going to be 50% more of what the ABV is.
Who is John?
John Jameson.
Is that, I mean, did he really distill the very first Jameson whiskey, or that's just a name we've put on it?
In all the commercials. Don't you ever? Yeah.
Fighting the octopus.
I don't.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He's famous.
But is he fictional or he's real?
He's real, and he's part of the history of Jameson. And, there's a great history to Irish whiskey. And at one time, there were hundreds of distilleries in Ireland making whiskey. Things were further taxed and regulated and reduced. And Jameson is the one distillery that's sort of from Dublin, from Bow Street, and now moved to the Middleton distillery. They sort of survived, and they make and contract a lot of other whiskeys. So
you mentioned the triple distilling and the double typically for Scotch. Are there other differences? Do they both use peat for, cooking and, and all that stuff? Give me more compare and contrast.
Yeah. So if you ask an Irish whiskey distiller and a Scotch whiskey distiller, who had it first? And it depends on the country that you're in that you're asking that question.
I believe it.
And so some of the differences are it's barley, it's malted barley. And in Scotland, they're going to use malted barley. The use of peat, which comes from the earth, is far more prevalent, but not every Scotch is a peated Scotch. If they use peat in Ireland, they bring it over.
Oh, sorry.
Peat is not a natural, traditional use for Irish whiskey. However, in Irish whiskey, they use malted and unmalted barley. And the reason is because at some point in Irish history, England decided to tax them on malted barley. And they said, okay, we'll just use both then and pay less taxes. But what it did was it created this new aroma in whiskey that wasn't there before. And it's described as a leathery type of aroma and flavor.
Well, speaking of aromas, I'm looking at the label here. Velvety notes of toffee, cacao, and toasted almond with an extra drop of smoothness. And this says extra smooth. They really talk about the smoothness of this Jameson triple.
It is. It's not a harsh, full-flavored whiskey. It is smooth.
Burn on the way down. Not going to put on your chest, as they say.
It probably will if you drank enough of it, but don't do that. Be safe. But we haven't even talked about some of those descriptors there. We haven't talked about the sherry barrels.
Yeah.
What that will add to it. Do you drink a lot of sherry? Ever had any?
Had sherry, but not very much.
Often.
Well, sherry is unique to Spain, and it's a fortified wine. And it's made in southern Spain, so the environment is conducive to make sherry there.
What's comparable to a sherry?
Well, fortified wine in the category includes port and sherry, and it couldn't be more different.
So they're not going to taste anywhere close to each other.
Right. I think a lot of Americans think sherries are sweet, and there are some sweet sherries. This particular sherry, Oloroso sherry, is dry.
I feel like Fraser and Niles used to drink sherry before they would go to the opera.
I love that, but I also think people thought sherry was snobby from that, maybe. Don't you think? Yeah. And it's not. It's really good. And
what's that raggedy chair in their living room?
Oh, there's the dad. Just past the dad's chair.
We're gonna do a sherry show. We're gonna have to do it. But Oloroso sherry is a fortified wine, specifically made in the sherry region, and it ages a little bit like Scotch. It oxidizes the wine and fortifies it, stabilizes it, and the sherry leaves the barrel, and then the barrel is transported to Ireland to have the whiskey put in it.
Can you taste the sherry? Can you taste the bourbony chestnut in all of this?
Yeah. You can. I mean, I can. I'm sure, we all can. Bourbon, is that going to give it maybe a little sweetness because bourbon comes from corn and it's got the sweetness. The chestnut is a little earthier. It's going to give it more of an earthy and cinnamon note. And that sherry's, all that stuff you just described that you read, that's going to have all that nuttiness.
Would this be good, the Jameson triple, and Jameson's got a lot of different kind of varieties. They have an orange one. Would this be good to drink by itself, or would this be good to put in as a mixer?
Yes. And that's what I love about it.
Like a Manhattan?
Yeah.
or
Well,
old-fashioned?
Irish coffee, man.
Irish
you can do it.
coffee.
Yeah, you really can because it's smooth. Now, remember when you make it in a cocktail and you add something else to it, you're going to lose a little of those nuances, but that's okay. They're still going to be there, just going to be harder to find. And if you just have it on the rocks or something like that, you'll notice some of those notes.
Remind me what goes in an Irish coffee. Is it just your Irish whiskey in your coffee, or do you need to put something else in it?
You really don't need to put anything else in it except maybe some whipped cream and then float a little green cream to mint on the top because
It's Irish.
A dollop of cream.
yeah.
A dollop will do you as far as that goes.
But you want to make sure the measurements are correct because you don't want to have a coffee mug full of whiskey and
Are you sure?
little half ounce of coffee.
So what should be the right measurements?
Well, you measure it like a cocktail. So 2 ounces, ounce and a half, and then coffee, 4, 5, 6 ounces of coffee because you're going to you're not going to be able to have a second one.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
So we mentioned that this is one of the newest whiskeys on the shelf. Can people find it everywhere?
It's everywhere. I just found out it's at Dirt Cheap, and we've been talking about to them to do some projects with. So you can get it there. You can get it at Schnuck Stierberg's, probably Total Wine, anywhere where you can get Jameson. You can now get the triple.
Now, I know that you typically have an answer for everything, Mike Ward, and we appreciate that so much. You have any idea, like, how long the brains at Jameson have been working on this triple before it actually makes it to those shelves?
4 years of experimenting. And what they had to do was make some mistakes, try this out with several different barrels. So they had to take their finished product whiskey.
And that takes years.
That does take years. They tried one batch, maybe with certain barrels for certain lengths of time. It's not so much. They probably had this idea with these 3 types of barrels for a while, but then how long do you leave it in there? Yeah. And I was kidding about the 4 years. I made that up. I had you going, though, didn't it?
As we're sitting here going, is this the truth?
Right. Yeah.
I feel like we're playing 3 truths and a lie, or one of those things like Darren was talking about the other day.
Well, just like you were talking about earlier, let me tell you the truth about this. Let me be honest with you.
It's with you.
Yeah.
If people have a question for you, whether it's about whiskey or wine or beer or vodka or a cocktail, they can get a hold of you.
Mike at wardonwine.com. And if you are interested in this whiskey and you're thinking, depending on where you are, where can I find it? If you send me an email, I can probably get close. I can probably locate it. So that's something that we don't talk about.
If we say, hey, I live in this part of town, where's the closest place for me to grab the triple?
I'll try to get back to you right away, and maybe I can get you close. So if you're in, like
that's what you call customer service right there.
Oh, yeah. Why I want people to enjoy it.
Yeah. Well, I can't wait to open that bottle. Mike Ward, cheers to you, my friend. Thanks for introducing us to one more fantastic whiskey.
Cheers.